We're at 7, Kelly.
We are live.
We are live.
We're live.
It's on webinar.
Okay. We're live, Kelly?
Yes, we're live.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Mahone Bay Town Council. As you're well aware, thank you to the COVID-19 variety of virus, we are meeting electronically. And we also have folks that are watching us through our YouTube connection. This meeting will be available as a recording when the meeting is done, just in case you missed some really interesting points and want to come back and have another look at it. We also have a couple of guests with us tonight who will be doing a presentation on an issue that they want to discuss with council. So with that, council, you have an agenda that was emailed to you. What would you do with the agenda?
I move the agenda be approved as presented.
We can put up our hands.
Seconded by Councillor Carver.
Yep.
Motion by the Deputy Mayor to accept as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Let's go to the minutes of the regular meeting of March 10th. What is your wish?
I move that they be accepted as circulated.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded by Councillor O'Neill that the minutes of the meeting of March 10th be approved as presented. All in favor? Motion's carried. The special meeting of March 19th.
So moved.
Moved by Richard now to accept as presented. Seconder? Joseph, Councillor Feeney. All in favor? Motion's carried. And let's go to the special meeting of April 2nd. Moved by Councillor Carver.
So move, yeah.
Yes. Seconded by Councillor Now. All in favor? Motion's carried. Let's hope everything goes that well tonight. Okay. We now have a delegation. Michelle Johnson and Jane Smith are here to discuss the Mahone Bay logo. When you speak, you're on the screen. Please.
Okay, well, good evening. I'm Mickey Johnson, and Jane and I discussed that I would talk first. And usually I'll be summarizing my research regarding and color blindness. In October, the question was posed how logo A would be seen by persons with visual acuity issues and or color blindness. This caught my attention because my papa was red-green colorblind and unable to see several colors clearly. Knowing the difficulties that my papa faced, I firmly believe Logo A's choice of colors and its reliance on color to impression would compromise its intention and those who are. To test this theory, I used an app called Chromatic Vision Simulator, which is designed to help persons with normal color vision see images as a person with any of the three major categories of color blindness. That includes the protanope, the deuteranope, and the tritanope. I ran the image of Logo A into the app and printed my findings, which are included in the petitions that you've all received. I also gathered information about color blindness and the recommendations for creating media with a colorblind audience in mind. Lastly, I compared Logo A's design and how closely it adhered to these recommendations, and I recorded my findings. One recommendation for creating media for the colorblind audience is to avoid certain color combinations and to consider the usage environment or lighting. Logo A conflicts directly with this by actually using two non-recommended color combinations, the colors of green and blue together and the colors of light green and yellow. Also, different sources of light, including laptops, phones, indoor or outdoor lighting, morning versus evening lighting can further complicate the ability to discern these colors, which are already challenging to those with visual color deficiencies. Another recommendation is that to impart important information to all users, especially to those who cannot distinguish differences in color, one should avoid reliance on only color to convey information. Logo A is in direct opposition to this recommendation by using the colors green, blue, and yellow to solely represent and communicate information about the town of Mahone Bay. Using the chromatic vision simulator, the green colored triangle chosen to represent our natural environment and our responsibility to be good environmental stewards is actually gray to the protanope and the deuteranope, which are the most common forms of color blindness. The yellow triangle chosen to convey our treasured community and shared values of neighborhood and society is actually pink to the tritanope. The blue triangle, which represents our sustenance from the ocean, is the richest and most consistent color to all eyes. In fact, that's why Facebook is blue. Mark Zuckerberg, creator and founder of Facebook, is red-green colorblind, and he has said that blue is the most vivid color to him, which was also the reason it was my papa's favorite color, because as colorblind individuals, they can actually see blue. Though blue is relatable and visible to all eyes, it still conflicts with the advice to avoid reliance on only color to convey information. My conclusion is that logo A is not a viable logo for those who are unable to discern color and does not follow many of the recommendations for creating media with a colorblind audience in mind. The town of Mahone Bay government is forward-thinking and committed to being accessible for all. While accommodating colorblind viewers is not yet a universal requirement to assist those with this disability, many countries do require such an accommodation. This means that there is a precedent for constructing design work in this manner, which unfortunately logo A fails to meet. Thank you.
Am I on now?
Go for it, Jane.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having us. Mine is not going to be as scientific as Maggie's was. That was great. I didn't know that about Facebook. Anyway, I just wanted to give you an update on the petition, what we've got accomplished there. Since you've received it, there's been new numbers on it. There's a total of 702 people that have signed it. 29 are from Mahone Bay. So they're added on there too with the ones that you have. There's also possibly more on there that haven't been highlighted because of their postal code. The area that they put in, if they don't put in their postal code and they are from Mahone Bay, it won't come up on the petition. So there are more, but I'm guessing we're over 200 from the town on the petition. Not saying that there's people from all over the world that has recognized, you know, the logo and would like to keep it for the town. And the only things I'd like to mention is maybe that the people of the town were not notified about this change. And it was kind of a shock to us all when the newsletter did come out. I know it was for me. And I think it should have been involvement with the town people. Everything else, you guys have always done that with us, which is great, and always wanted our input. And this time we didn't get that chance. And I think if anything, the town people should have that chance. I just believe the new logo, it fosters, as Penny said, I believe one of the meetings, it fosters separation. It divides us. And I think as town, you guys are like the heart and soul of Mahone Bay. You guys, you know, you get the blood pumping everywhere else into different areas and make the town alive. And if we're not sort of a unity with who we are, I think that sort of says something. And I think we need to be one. Okay. And the churches have always been, you know, it's an iconic tradition, historic. And I believe as Mahone Bayers, that's who we are. Other than that, I don't want to talk too long. I'll do a little visual thing. I'm a very visual person. So when things see, but I don't know if you can see that or not.
That looks good.
But that's our identity, okay? And if this is without the words, okay? So Mahone Bay's taken off of both, but this is what people will see. And to me, this one is much more important of who we are, I think. So on that note, if there's anything else I can cover, I think I've covered everything I want to say. It's just, basically, I think everybody should have been involved with this. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Council, does anyone have any questions for either of our two presenters? Going once, going twice?
Jane, I saw that your new count is up close to 700. I think you mentioned that number, and reflects, you know, at least the 25% of that or so is from people that live in the town.
Right.
Over what period were you able to attain that kind of volume of people? And when you did so, like, what was the, was it easy to secure names on the list, or can you just describe the process of how you and the rest of your team gathered the names on the petition?
Yeah, we just started it's called change.com, I think, or .org, the petition, and we pretty much just put it out there on Facebook. And it sort of circulated, and we've got people from all over the world, like everywhere, that knows Mahone Bay. And there's a lot of comments on there. So if you go on and read the comments also, it gives a lot of that, but it wasn't hard at all. People were understanding of it. And we did make sure that they knew that it wasn't the Chamber of Commerce or our tourism getting changed. It was the town's logo that was getting changed, but they still feel the same way. We still feel like we need to be one. We need to be a unit, a town, and a family, basically.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Councilor Carver.
Yes, thanks, Jane and Mickey. Great presentations. Jane, I just want to check with you about the numbers. You said that the numbers are up to 700 now. They were around a little over 500 when you turned the petition in.
Correct.
And some of those were online and some were hard copy.
Yes.
The ones that are online, I just want to check, because you said that at least 29, there's at least 29 more names from Mahone Bay.
Yep, that was, I just typed them off this morning, and it was from, I don't know what the last date you guys had on yours, but I believe it was from,
We turned the petition in on March 9th.
the 9th. Yeah, so everything from the 10th on, which are these pages, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more pages, which is a total of well, I didn't count all of them, but from Mahone Bay, there was 29 people.
So
from
when you
Mahone
say they're,
Bay.
when you say they're from Mahone Bay, was that judging from their postal code?
Yes, yes.
Because the
yeah.
postal code is the same for some people who are living in the district around.
Exactly, yes.
So they're not necessarily from the town. I just
Yeah.
wanted to clarify that.
Yes, yeah. Well, they have written like Mahone Bay on them. This was from the PDF copy. There's 2 copies you can get. There's a Word and a PDF,
Yeah.
and one has the postal code and one doesn't. It
Okay,
gives the location.
thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
Jane.
you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mickey,
you.
Thanks, Jane. Thanks, Mickey.
for your
Thanks,
attention and your participation.
Thanks very much.
Thanks.
For having us.
Okay, council. What is your, what do you want to do with this?
Well, Mr. Mayor,
I'm sorry, Mr. Hyde?
can I just interject? Well, so normally what we would do is if anyone had a motion that they wanted to make on this basis, they would hold it until new business and do a notice of motion because our policy prohibits doing a motion on a delegation.
Okay, and we really would have the discussion once the motion was made and seconded.
Isn't there a resolution coming later on?
Well, and new business would be after that, Carl. So
Councilor Carver? Okay,
depending on
good.
that, if
Councilor
there's anybody-
Carver's got a motion in the wings that will
Yep.
have an opportunity to discuss it. Okay.
Okay, good.
Well, with that, we'll move on to correspondence. The only action item we have, Mr. Hyde, is the one from Daisy Foster. And this is this is deferred from January the 30th. I think when she told us she didn't have the funding, but now we've had some other good news in the meantime.
Yeah, do you want me to put it on the screen or just speak to it?
I think you can just speak to it, Dylan. Everyone has their copy, do they not?
Yeah, everybody should have it. And as you say, this should be something that everybody's familiar with because initially we deferred it based on my estimation that we would hear from FCM within a month. And we didn't hear from FCM within the month. We have since, I can say we anticipate, because that's what I'm allowed to say, we anticipate funding from the MAMP program. And you're all familiar with reading between the lines on that. So that's the news we were waiting for. Essentially what it means is that the direct condition assessment work within the utilities, especially the electrical utility, and mapping our assets there can go ahead with the FCM footing 80% of that bill. And because of that, we will have the data to really benefit completely from participating in cohort 2, which is what we were waiting on. That's Daisy's request that we commit to participating in cohort 2. So the only thing I would add, besides continuing to recommend that we do approve participation, and we're going to the budget. If council approves it now, you'll see it in the budget, or if council just wants to see it in the context of the budget, you'll see it in the context of the budget next week. But I did want to add that in conversation with Daisy, I think everyone would not be surprised to hear that the beginning of that cohort 2 might be a little bit delayed as a result of the COVID situation continuing. So in that sense, no rush. Most likely this is something that will end up taking place in the latter 2 quarters of the year, depending on how things are going.
So, council?
So I do recommend that we approve it in the budget, but I'll leave it at that.
Do I hear a motion to put it to budget?
Mayor, I'm happy to make that motion.
Councilor Carver makes the motion. Do we have a seconder? Councilor Now? All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Let's go to information correspondence.
Motion to receive
Deputy
and
Mayor?
file the, motion to receive and file the information items.
Okay, motion to receive and file. Do we have a seconder? Are you seconding, Councillor Carver? Okay,
I could second it. I want to say something.
okay.
And
but
I'll-
you-
Councilor Bain did.
Before we
I'll
have the
second it.
vote, you will have a chance to comment.
Okay,
So do we have a seconder?
I seconded it.
Okay, I didn't see your hand go up, John. Councillor Carver, over to you.
yes, I just wondered about the chamber letter, the letter from the chamber. Essentially, they're asking us for consideration of their request. So they're asking for consideration of things like delayed payments of commercial property tax, town utility bills, and other financial support that will assist those who are most vulnerable at this time. So the Chamber of Commerce is asking on behalf of businesses. So it sounds like this is an action item rather than an information item.
Mr. Hyde.
That's a good catch there from Councillor Carver. I think it is an information item at this point because we have essentially we have done those things. Council has already taken the action to suspend interest charges and disconnections and tax sales. However, it would be appropriate to do a motion to write them back expressing that and anything else council wishes to express for sure.
I so move.
I second that.
We've got another motion on the table first,
Oh,
Right.
okay? All in favor of the first motion to receive and file? Motions. Councillor Carver, are you voting to receive and file? You're on mute.
You're on mute.
sorry. Because we have an action item on one of those items. So the receive.
And we're going to take that action item as soon as we do this one.
Okay, could we receive and file all of them except that particular one?
All right. Okay, people, we have an amendment to receive and file all except for the one letter from the Chamber of Commerce. Deputy Mayor, do you agree?
Yeah, but I mean, a lot has changed in the letter since he's written the letter. The government has come out with major programs. My daughter runs a small business. She had to lay off 10 people. And the government has stepped up to this. I think as far as looking for money from the town, we don't have money. We're not the municipality of Chester. There's just, I think, quite a reserve. So I think we could knock that one off. And I think we're doing, as Mr. Hyde said, that we are doing what everybody else seems to be doing, you know, deferring tax bills and everything else. So
Water bills and electric bills.
write this letter to them as far as looking for financial help. I know Tofini always has, Tofini has issues with our reserve fund. I don't think we can go down into that and try to help out small business. So I think we could knock that off, but maybe just a letter to say what we have done, and it seems to be with everybody else. I'm okay with the amendment. I'm fine with that.
Okay.
And to speak to, if I may, to speak to the deputy mayor, that was my intent, simply to take it off so we could do the action of writing a letter.
Great.
Okay. All in favor of receive and file with the exception of the chamber letter? That motion's carried. Now, Councillor Carver, you have a new motion.
Just that staff craft a letter to the Chamber of Commerce updating the steps we've taken so far and acknowledging that the government programs are now in place or coming into place. So at a future consideration or to that effect.
I think it might be worthwhile to suggest that council will continue to monitor the situation. And as this thing unfolds, we may have to take different actions and different approaches, but we certainly will be discussing it with the chamber.
I'll second the motion.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? Motion's carried. Okay. let's go to the next item on the list. I can't even see that far.
Could I make a comment, Your Worship?
You certainly can, Councillor Bain.
Okay, I don't know whether to convey it through the next coming newsletter, but it is relative to the motion we just made, that anybody that can pay their taxes and their utility bills on time should be encouraged to do it. And not just
Absolutely.
take advantage of a delay, because cash flow is extremely important, and
Yeah.
it's going to become more important as this goes on. Thank you.
CAO, did you want to comment at all on that billing process and sharing
can
that
just-
information?
I can comment that the notice that is going out with all the bills, which are still being issued, it does specify that while we aren't charging interest or doing disconnects, we do encourage people to pay the bills, and it does provide them with direction in paying by check or by online banking. So certainly the communications are, because council pointed this out in our earlier meeting, have been reflective of the idea that the relief is for those who need it.
Okay. Thank you. Let's go on to the next item. Item 6, staff reports to council. 6.1 is the staff report to council.
And,
Anyone
I
have
do
any
think
questions
need
for
to share it,
CAO?
But I'll only share it if I need to. So if anybody wants me to, just let me know.
Did anyone have any questions? Councillor Carver.
Yes, I have one question, which is about, it's number 3 under the CAO report. And so it's right at the very beginning. And it's about the safety and procurement issue that's been dropped now, or at least postponed by the MGSB, because something about modal. So can you just explain what happened there?
I can, and the chair may wish to, mayor may wish to comment. There was a letter from MODL to the chair of the MJSB, which happens to be Mayor Davini. So if he wants to comment about that, I'm not sure.
Well, I think MODL, and to some degree, even in Bridgewater, they're looking at what the MJSB services are costing them. And they are stepping back from the edge that it's not an economical way for them to do business at this time. So that's why it's slipped off the end of the desk. And there may be other things that they may choose to withdraw from. And since they are the lion's, MODL is the lion's share of the contribution to MJSB, they kind of carry the day. CAO, anything to add, or?
No, I didn't have anything else to add to that question.
Okay. Any of the other questions for CAO from that report?
I think Colleen has her hand up.
Councillor O'Neill?
I have a question related to the Director of Operations report, if we're moving to that one.
Yeah.
May I ask, item number 8, COVID-19 indicates that a cancellation of the regular reading of power and water meters that was scheduled to occur the first week of April. And I wonder if you can comment on whether that has any implication to the billing cycle. And if so, what?
Yeah, I can. It won't have an implication on the billing cycle in these situations. And we have had situations where we weren't able to do meter reads before for a variety of reasons. We do move forward with an estimated billing. In this case, in terms of residential demand, the estimated billing should favor the individuals because their usage is generally higher as a result of COVID. So it won't be reflective of that. It'll be reflective of past usage patterns. With regards to businesses, we're purposefully underestimating the demand. It's a little bit complicated, but we've taken a step of doing the estimation of the demand part of businesses in a conservative way to reflect that they're not using as much power. So we'll proceed with the billings on the estimates, and then we'll square them up when we resume meter reading And that is fairly typical for both water and electrical in town.
Thank you for that explanation.
Anyone else? CAO's getting off easy tonight. Okay. Hearing none, we'll go to the next item, the traditional land acknowledgement report. This was a question that we had posed some time ago, and staff have been seeking a reasonable solution to the issue for us. Who'll, is the clerk on with us? Maureen?
Yes, I am. So as you noted, staff were asked to look into the practice of traditional land acknowledgement. As you see in the report, our research, what we found out is outlined, and we do have a recommendation there for council.
Okay. And how does the wording of those pieces, those recommended pieces, how does that compare with other communities in Lunenburg County in particular? Or does it?
I have to tell you, it was very difficult to find responses. So what we ended up doing was finding what we could from areas that have something that's established. And as you see in the report, we have used HRM as a model because they've put a lot of work into theirs.
Yeah.
And they have the reasons why and how they use it and different ways they use it. And we've found a lot of places don't have something that's consistent. So we wanted to look to something that's established and that they've been using. And we thought this worked very well. And that was a difficult thing to find in Lunenburg County.
Thank you. And did you talk with the Aboriginal community representatives to get their reaction to it? I notice in your review, it talks about going back and talking with them in December of 2020 to ensure the local Indigenous community has an opportunity to offer feedback. Did we ask them about the issue? No?
Can I jump in there as well?
Please.
So I think one of the challenges in terms of providing an opportunity for feedback in that way, and what we're hoping to do with this recommendation, is instead of trying to determine for ourselves who would be the appropriate parties to consult, because there are a lot of different individuals and no one officially speaks, for everyone on the subject, is to invite the local community, whoever feels that they do have an opinion on the subject, to participate rather than us selecting in that way. So we really relied on Aboriginal affairs with the province for that perspective in this current draft.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Carter.
Yes, I'm confused about the two different motions. It looks as if the first one is asking us to adopt the two versions that you suggested, that staff suggested. So I don't understand why the revisiting it in December 2020. I missed something.
Yeah, I would. So I think it's essentially for council to have a statement that conforms with what we're seeing as the best practice with the provincial guidelines from Aboriginal Affairs, but to acknowledge that this statement was arrived at without consultation. And so we do stand by the recommendation of the statement that's there. But if council doesn't adopt the second statement, doesn't make that second motion, then just understand that, as we just talked about, we haven't had an opportunity to receive any local feedback on it. And, just in light of other conversations tonight, we just want to make sure that we provide a recommendation if council does want to get that local feedback. But in light of COVID, we also don't feel that we necessarily need to hold off on use of what seems to be an appropriate statement in the meantime.
Hmm. And Aboriginal Affairs, what the feedback you got from them would support this motion.
The wording that we've proposed here is reflective of what they recommended.
Okay,
Hmm.
all right. Counselor,
I'll make the motion that council adopt an acknowledgement that the town of Mahone Bay sits on the traditional land of Mi'kma'ki. And should I specify that the versions that were offered to us by staff as circulated by staff?
I think you could say the motion, the council adopt this acknowledgement if you're comfortable with that version of the acknowledgement, and we'll include the acknowledgement that was provided.
I would say,
That council adopt this acknowledgement
Yeah,
that the
okay,
town of Mahone Bay sits on the traditional land of Mi'kma'ki.
thank you. Do we have a seconder?
Second that.
Seconded by Councillor Feeney. You've heard the motion. All in favor? Motion is carried. Nice to see that one done. It's been a while coming. And I always felt uncomfortable when one gets up to speak at one of these events and I'm not sure if I'm insulting someone or I'm not saying the right thing, if it is appropriate. But now we've got something that is appropriate. What about a second motion on the second issue? Councillor O'Neill.
I'd like to make a motion that council request a review of the territorial acknowledgement in December 2020 to ensure that the local Indigenous community has an opportunity to offer feedback.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Carver, you've heard the motion. All in favor? Okay, motions. I can't see Councillor Bain or Councillor Now on my screen. If I go to gallery view, maybe instead of, there we go.
There you go.
There's Richard. Do you agree with those motions, Richard? And John?
Yes, most definitely.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the next item. The amended outdoor burning bylaw. Where did this one come from? What originated and I only ask that because we went through this bylaw 3 or 4 years ago. Anyway, Maureen?
I can briefly comment, and Maureen can as well if she needs to. Well, we just have had some issues in terms of enforcement, mostly as noted in the report, coming around to how, especially the fire chief, or in the event that we now have a bylaw enforcement officer and he were to respond, how would we determine if the fire pit is compliant? And
Yes.
so this is increasing the definition in a way that is more verifiable. That being said, Maureen did work on it. If she wants to give any further comment, I think she talked to Al about this as well, our bylaw enforcement.
Yes, we did talk with our bylaw enforcement. We spoke with some contacts with the province. I think that the CAO outlined most of it. One of the big things that we really tried to identify is the difference between a fire pit and an outdoor burning appliance. The other thing that we identified is that there are a whole other set of guidelines provincially for one of the propane appliances. A lot of people have those propane fire pits in their backyard. That's a different set of rules entirely. So we've really tried to clarify what's a fire pit, and if you have a fire pit, what's required for it to be safe. And as the CAO said, that also from this, we came up with like a checklist that someone can go by and say, okay, yes, it's safe.
Okay, Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you. This comes up occasionally when we're reviewing policies, new ones or amended ones. It's difficult to determine what has changed since the current policy, and I am normally just looking to see highlighting to see what is changing. Is this an entirely new policy, or can you describe what sections or point to the specific sections that have been changed?
There are some things, sorry, I've got a lot of screens going on here with minutes and stuff too. Let me catch up with you. The biggest changes are really in the definitions. And then, as I said, we've added the acceptable fire pit, that's changed. The old bylaw had the term portable barbecue. Now we just say barbecue because not every barbecue is necessarily portable. It can still be a barbecue. We've added, I hate this situation because I'm never sure how to pronounce that. Is that chimenea? I'm not sure, but that one, D. So a few little things like that have changed. And again, as I said, outdoor burning appliance has been added. We have made a few changes to 3.0, outdoor fires prohibited. There are a few minor wording changes in there. Again, a lot of that came about once we changed definitions. And we, under section 4, outdoor fires permitted. Again, there are some differences there with the references to barbecue because we're talking about a barbecue now, not necessarily getting into a portable barbecue. There were some areas, look at section 4.2b, only dry seasoned firewood shall be used. The old bylaw has language in addition to that, only dry seasoned firewood shall be used because it's something like it doesn't create a nuisance or something like that. So some sort of cleaning up like that. Section 4.3, there is some clarification about where a fire pit may be. And that also includes, let me see. Yes, that's the one where it's on the deck. There was some wording before about what would be okay on a deck, but again, we clarified. So that's really they're minor changes, but a fair few of them.
Does the
Just
town
if I could
actually?
echo Councillor O'Neill's comment, I thought we had agreed a few meetings back that when we got these documents, we would have the changes highlighted or underlined in red or printed in red lettering, so we would know precisely what has been changed.
It's often, I mean, I think the intent here is to do that, and we can highlight the sections using track changes that shows like additional deleting format changes and renumbering is going to be a nightmare to look at when we're fully reformatting a bylaw, but we can highlight the relevant sections.
I don't think the numbering, it's the content, I think, Dylan, that's the issue. And because I'm not unlike Councillor O'Neill, I look at the document and I'm going through it trying to figure out, well, what's been changed, what's different? Or is it just a validation of what had been there? But anyway. Okay. Councillor Carver.
So I have some questions just about the content.
Yeah.
May I? In 2A, in the definitions, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the size of the receptacle shall not be greater than 762 millimeters. Is that long? Is that way? Is it square?
Yeah.
It's as if something's missing there. I think it means an area, but
I would have to go back to that. I'm sorry I didn't see that. That is something that came through from other guidelines. I'd have to clarify that. I don't have that answer right now.
Okay.
But Mayor,
Later-
fundamentally, like sorry, Councillor Carver.
Later on in the document, the same measurement is mentioned and it's expressed as an area, I believe, later on in the document. Just
Okay.
Mayor, my question is just really about like, what is our intent? Is this a fire safety protection act that we're trying to improve upon, the Canadian regulatory environment on particular products like barbecues? Is this a nuisance, an anti-nuisance? People just want to make sure outdoor fire pits aren't, causing smoke that's going to impact people's air quality in the next door. Like what's the overarching theme of the bylaw and its changes?
CAO?
Yeah, so as we said, the issue here came up with, we have a bylaw on outdoor burning. It currently says things that are vague that we're required to enforce. So it says things like, if you have a barbecue, it needs to be safe. And let's say that safe is not defined. So now we've come along and said safe means 15 meters from a home. It means having a non-flammable surface underneath it. So there's essentially taking guidelines that were difficult to enforce in the eyes of our bylaw enforcement officer and the fire chief when they're called to enforce them, and then adding some detail. So we haven't created any new obligations in this. I think that's the important thing here, is that staff are not suggesting that we take any additional jurisdiction. An alternative would be that council, relieves themselves of the jurisdiction. We don't have to enforce this at all. But if we're going to, these are some recommendations to increase the enforceability. So it's not changing the intent of the existing bylaw.
Okay.
I mean, when I think of outdoor
Just a
burning,
second, Joseph. Maureen had her. Yep, Maureen. So clerk, please.
Just to add to that, to what Mr. Hyde said, in increasing the enforceability, it's also increasing the clarity for residents. When residents look at this and they say, what am I allowed to have? Is this okay? Is this not okay? These changes we're hoping will do the same thing. It makes it more clear for residents so they can look at the bylaw and say, this is what I'm allowed to do or not allowed to do. And it does make that very clear across the board. Like you'll see the appendix on the end. If someone says they want to have their fire pit checked, there's a little checkbox. Yes, yes, yes. A resident can look at that same checkbox. And then if somebody is called to look at a fire pit, then everybody has the same thing that says it met this needs to change, whatever. That enforceability does go hand in hand with increased clarity for residents.
Okay. Councillor Feeney.
so this strikes me as a little bit of overregulation when we bring in things like barbecues into a town bylaw. So I'm not sure what the heritage of the original bylaw was. My sense of things is it was around, leaf burning in the fall, or it was around, out of control outdoor burning around, your traditional like large Hurl and Why Not outdoor fire pit, like and we have, or the one that Bob Morris would have, for example, that we drive by every day in front of the three churches. I mean, people have these things. They're deemed safe and the world turns, and fine, there should be some regulations about that. But when we get down to measuring 700 millimeters and barbecues and distances from homes, I mean, I think at some point you just ask yourself, like, why are we in the business of enforcing where people put their barbecue and whether it's on a deck or not?
Councillor Carver.
Well, I want to speak to that. Having seen a couple of, well, at least several burning episodes near my home, and having been afraid, very afraid, and having called the RCMP and on one occasion and called the bylaw officer on another occasion, I have to tell you that I support the extra detail here.
Okay, clerk.
Just to clarify that 4.0.1 says persons shall be permitted to cook food using a barbecue or other food preparation appliance designed for outdoor uses. So we're actually not getting involved with barbecues. We're making the distinction that we're not talking about barbecues.
They don't need our permission to do that, to go buy a barbecue and use it.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Worship, I'm prepared to put a motion on the floor that we accept the burning bylaw. Seem to be getting bogged down on this, and something I think is quite straightforward. It gives our bylaw officers some power And I'm prepared to put the motion on the floor.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Bain seconds. CAO, did you want to comment?
Oh, just clarity, Carl, I'm hoping you wouldn't mind if your motion were to schedule a hearing, because this will require a hearing.
That was the motion. Yes, I see. Yeah.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Carver's next. You're on mute, Penny.
I know, I was clicking the wrong thing. So I have some other questions about the content of the bylaw, and they're for clarification. Shall I do them now, or shall I do them off air with Maureen and Dylan?
Would you expect an answer which would impact your decision on how you're going to vote on the motion?
No, I don't think so. No, they're mainly clarification questions.
Would you mind if we proceeded with the vote and you can clarify it offline?
I'm happy with that.
Thank you. Councillor Bain, you had a comment? Can't hear you, John.
I was reconfirming that I had seconded the motion.
Okay. Motion has been moved and seconded. All in favor? Motion is carried. Good-o. Councillor Carver, you'll be talking to staff in the next couple of days to get your clarifications. Let's go to the next item. And this is the town expense policy. This has been hanging around since February. Before we begin our discussion, I would like to offer a comment. We've had this in front of us. I think this is the third time. And when we have the discussion, different councillors have different ideas about how this policy should unfold. And we go away and staff looks at it, and the document that keeps coming back seems to be the same document. I discussed it with the CAO, and he suggested that what's missing is council is not taking a motion to decide on the action they want to take around this. And he suggested that there's two ways to do it. We can pursue a motion on the policy as presented, and then we can add exemptions or exceptions to that motion. Or, and this is my personal preference, that we will go through this document and we will make a motion on all the contentious points, which will make for a final version. And then we'll be able to vote on the final version. CAO?
Just for clarity on that. So yeah, the suggestion is that if council were to make a motion that says we direct staff to produce a version of the expense policy reflective of, and then go through and look at things like the minimum age for childcare and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whatever that motion directed, we'll bring back a policy on that basis, and then you can have a vote on that policy if that would help to get to that point.
Okay. So let's go to the document that was presented. And I think most of the contentious issues are the ones that are highlighted in yellow.
Would
Well,
you
the
like
issue-
me to share this one on the screen, Mr. Mayor?
That on the screen? 'Cause I don't have it printed in front of me, so.
I can put it
Yeah.
on the screen.
I can't see their faces if we do that, but. Okay. Let's go there. Let's go to that page. Now, there's nothing on that page except for the word travel struck out. Is there anything else on that page that anyone has an issue with? Okay, let's go to the next page. Meetings with representatives, anything with that first yellow item? Does that kind of, although it does say other opportunities, but meetings of any board or commission to which employees, elected officials, or committee members have been appointed. Does that kind of cover it all?
And this was revised on the first time we brought this up on the
It did,
basis of
yes.
council's discussion.
Just want to give council one opportunity to.
How do you want to do that, Mayor? Do we just say that's fine with me at this point, or?
I think when we get to one that needs to change from what's on the screen, we will have, I presume we'll have a discussion, and
Right.
then we'll entertain a motion on that single item.
Okay, so if we're going to go by this item, does that mean that we've accepted that item?
Yes,
Okay,
it
so
does.
could you please just state that we're accepting that item, just so it's clear?
Okay, we will. Okay, given that it's highlighted, I entertain a motion on this item.
I would suggest that you don't go, I mean, it's up to you, but it's going to be really full minutes just of motions on every one of these things. My suggestion was that if you want to change what's presented here, you do a motion. What's presented here, I think if you just assume that unless anyone objects, you can take this.
Councillor
Carver, does that reflect what you were just saying?
Yeah, just to have a sense, does anybody object? No, it's
Okay.
done. Yeah.
Let's go to the next one. Does anyone, I'm trying to move that up the screen, Dylan.
Oh, sorry.
Mileage will be reimbursed for only out of town travel the word, and will be calculated as the distance from the town office to the destination. No problem with that? That's
Fair enough.
Dylan, let's go to the next one. Expense claims. Okay, okay. And now we come down to a relatively new piece in this policy. The cost of family care incurred by a member of council or volunteer committee member during participation of duties shall be reimbursed by the municipality, given that the care is not provided by an immediate family member and a receipt is provided stating the time and date of the care. The reimbursement of family care shall be a taxable benefit. Any comments on that phrase?
I have a comment. I don't
Councillor
agree.
Ross, Deputy Mayor? Yes.
I don't agree with that at all. I don't think we should be paying for childcare or senior care so people could be served on council or committees. People go to work, say, excuse me, a couple go work at Michelin, they have a 2-year-old. Michelin does not pay to have childcare for their child. You know, you have to make that decision when you join a committee or you join council. Can I do the job? And I feel our taxpayers do not have to pay for childcare or family care. If council is going to get it, what about our office staff or our public works staff? How come it's just us and not the rest of the staff? And that's all I have to say. I don't agree with that at all. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd like to reinforce what Councillor Noss is saying, that I don't think we should be getting into doing childcare expenses or that type of thing. We get our honorarium, which is meant to cover expenses, that type of thing. And I don't think it's necessary for us to be putting that onto the taxpayer.
Okay. Any other comments?
So with the way that you're doing this, Mr. Mayor, unless somebody wants to, this is how I understood what you're doing, unless somebody wants to move that we remove B here, then this version will eventually stand when we do have a vote on the draft policy. Alternatively, someone could make a motion now to remove this section or amend this section.
Yes.
But my
Can I-
understanding is what we're trying to do
I would
right
like-
now is not vote on the content of it, but to determine what will be in that final draft.
Your worship, I'd like to make a motion to remove this section B from the policy.
Okay,
I would second that, your worship.
okay.
I have
Did
a
hear
comment.
Councillor O'Neill, there she is.
I have a comment.
Yeah,
I just thought for posterity, I would reiterate a comment I have made several times at previous council meetings. This is, the decision that's being made here is a decision to continue to exclude people from participating in the democratic process and participating on committees of council because they have particular barriers to being able to attend. The cost to provide care so that a resident can participate in a meeting is extraordinarily low relative to the value that we receive by creating a progressive situation that allows everyone to equally participate. And I realize that this is not going to come through this council, but I feel that I would be remiss if I did not point out that we are voting for a status quo that has needed to change for a very long time.
okay.
I would like to comment.
Yes, Councillor Carver?
I absolutely support what Councillor O'Neill has said, and I'm concerned about the comments earlier equating members of council to members of the staff. They are quite different things, totally different things. One is an elected position and the other is a paid position on an employer-employee relationship. We are elected by the people in the community, and we are supposed to represent the diversity of the people in the community. And with this kind of barrier, we limit the kind of representation that we can have on council and in our committees. When this comes to a vote, I'm requesting that we have a recorded vote. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Feeney?
So Mayor, I think you made the point. I think this is the fourth meeting we've tried to litigate this item and debate it. And I think it's good that we've got enough time on this call to have a fulsome conversation before we need to move along to other matters. As many of you know, like this is just, we just cannot get into alignment across the council on all of the ramifications of this new entitlement. We've talked about it at length. I don't think it's a lack of spirit or desire to be more progressive or to be more in keeping with the times. It's just that the way that this particular clause is crafted at this moment is just, it leaves too many open ends for a very small municipal unit to deal with. I think the first time that most of us became aware of this type of entitlement, I think came through on the accessibility committee, where there is a level of compensation in the event of family care expenses. But I just think in that circumstance, it's not the municipal units who are funding that entitlement. And for our town, as helpful as we want to be, spending $70 a day on a 17-and-a-half-year-old child, the doesn't strike me as something that is easy to speak to the community. So I would hope that if we're unable to get this motion ratified this evening, I mean, I do think that this is an item that will, it's not going to go away forever. It will be revisited. I do think there's a compromise out there somewhere, but I don't think it's on section B. I just don't think the level of affordability is well understood yet. We're talking family care expenses will be reimbursed to a maximum of $70 a day to a maximum of $2,000 per year. Well, there's seven council members and 50 community members. Maybe only 2 or 3 or 4 people take advantage of that, but that alone would be $15,000 or $18,000. I'm not suggesting that this entitlement would ever be anywhere near that way there. But when we get to the financial section that the CIO and the staff always talks to and says, what are the financial implications of this item? It's a real number that needs to be better understood. So those are my thoughts on the topic. I think, I mean, again, this is our 4th time. I think everywhere where everybody stands is pretty well understood.
And if I could, Councillor Feeney, that goes to the discussion that the CAO and I had, that this package, this piece keeps going back and forth because we can't achieve that specific that you're talking about to make it reasonable and acceptable to the people on council.
I mean, personally, I'd rather see a very tight, very small, modest expansion of the entitlement. That would be very easy to understand exactly what that situation would be, where that entitlement would be provided, and there'd be a specific budget aligned with that entitlement. But we don't have that in this section, Mayor. At this time.
Councillor O'Neill?
I agree that I'd like to see the modeling. I would like to see what the financial model would look like if every committee of council had uptake to this particular policy. I'd like to see what that sort of high watermark would look like. And then I would like to see a model of what we would predict based on behavior and also on what we know of personal circumstance. So I suspect that the difference between those two models would be 100% being the high watermark and approximately 15% of uptake. I just want to be very clear again that what this policy does, it allows people who have dependents in their house that they cannot leave alone. And these are very bright people. These are residents of Mahone Bay who would be very valuable on committees. They'd be very valuable on council. Their voices would add an awful lot to our conversations, yet they are not in financial situations potentially to be able to leave dependent people at home. Those dependent people are not 17-and-a-half-year-old people, but they could be people who are, with mental health problems, who are on, suicide watch, for example, as was an example provided to me by a healthcare worker I had an opportunity to speak on this topic with last week. And you cannot leave these people home. And what we are deciding in not putting in something that would allow them, that would remove a barrier, is we're saying that your voice is not going to be represented at this table because you cannot afford to be there. Thank you.
Okay.
It's Penny here,
Councillor Carver?
otherwise known as Councillor Carver. So could you repeat the motion, please?
So this
Sorry.
motion, as I understood it, was to remove item B here, item 6B, from the draft of the expense policy that's under consideration by council.
And of course, there's a lot of other bits to it, but.
So it's to remove section 6B from the
Yeah,
policy. And that wouldn't preclude the issue of family care expense coming back to council at any point. It's simply removing it because the motion is simply removing it from this policy at this time. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the council, town council policy and the prohibition on repeating a decision, what we'll be doing in the end is voting on a draft of the expense policy. So any future draft of the expense policy would be a different item.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. So it doesn't kill it in the water, as it were.
Well, you can always revisit the expense policy if there's something that council would like to look at changing in the future.
Nevertheless, I will oppose the motion, and I will, because I think it could be tweaked to be more palatable or acceptable. And I request again a roll call.
Okay.
I
Mr.
spoke to this
Neal?
before.
Richard?
Yeah, I'd just like to add something else there. If we do this like for our members of council and the volunteer committee members, I think we're opening it up to other areas of town that are volunteers. Like, I'm just thinking the fire department, for instance, it's a part of the town. And if we start doing it for that, then we're gonna say, okay, we're letting people off not being able to be in the fire department unless we pay them childcare. So we're gonna open it up to other areas of volunteering in the town, my opinion.
And I think, Richard, there's two ways to look at that. And of course, one of them is the fact that you open it up and it costs us more money. But on the other hand, to pursue Councillor O'Neill's point, we may end up with people who could then become volunteer firefighters who might not otherwise be able to offer because of the need to provide home care.
Yep.
Councillor
Yeah.
Bain, sitting quietly in the corner. You're on mute, John.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, okay. I spoke to this before, and I have to agree that this whole business of, well, first of all, they're calling it council and volunteer committees. Well, they're no longer really volunteers for that matter. But just the whole concept of volunteering in Mahone Bay, it's almost a way of life for some people. And I've never heard anyone in any of the committees, which mind you are not council committees, that really feel they should be compensated for that sort of thing. So I would not be supporting this whole notion of paying for care. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we have a motion on the floor. Motion is to remove paragraph B. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Wait,
Recorded,
please.
has to be recorded vote, your worship.
Oh, it is a recorded vote. Mr. Bain? I can't hear you, John.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. I'm supporting removing this from the bylaw.
Okay, so that's yes to the motion. Councillor Carver?
No.
Okay. Mr. Feeney, Councillor Feeney?
Yes to this clause being removed.
Okay. And Mr. Now?
Yes to removing this from the policy.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes to removal.
No. And Councillor O'Neill?
Against removal.
Pardon me?
I
You
am
said no?
against.
I'm sure. Okay. Okay. I still support the notion of what this 6B is trying to do. I do think it needs a lot of work. We've recently had a spate of meetings where there was no quorum. Well, what happens then? Someone's booked for childcare, they come to the meeting doesn't happen, they go back home again. I don't think $70 a day is the right way to do it. There should be an hourly rate to a maximum of.
That's what it
And I
said.
think we need to tighten up exactly which committees we would support this for.
Mayor, I believe it does say to a maximum of 70.
Pardon me?
I believe it does say to a maximum of 70.
Yes, it does say a maximum of 70, but it should say $15 an hour to a maximum of 70. You shouldn't get $70 because you joined a committee and went to an hour-long meeting. I just can't support that. And when it talks about a member of the immediate family, the town's human resources policy, such as it is, defines immediate family. And I would like to see that referenced.
I think a point of order, we're having a vote. We're not having, we finished debate.
I know, and I'm voting yes. No, I'm voting no against the motion.
Yep.
I still think it's the right thing to do, but I think this particular piece is not the way to go about it.
What's the result of the vote?
The result of the vote is
4-2.
Four people vote yes, 3 people vote no. So the motion is passed.
Your worship,
Paragraph
your worship,
E is taken out of this particular document.
there's got to be an election in October, your worship. Could be a whole new council.
Hey. And if we can tighten this up, maybe it'll come back again. I don't know. Is that everything? Everything else disappears from that paragraph, Mr. CAO?
Yeah, I advanced it to the next change, which is on section
Okay,
E.
hang on here. I actually printed copies of this one out.
So this is where you have to skip down to the next
Cost of
policy
family care.
draft.
Okay. The meal allowance. Meal was not provided free of cost or as part of the transportation cost. Also not part of the accommodations cost. Many hotels in Metro, you stay there, your breakfast is included. If your breakfast is included, you don't get to claim it. And meal allowances are provided in Schedule A.
And if you'd like me to scroll down to Schedule A, just let me know.
Yeah, Council, what is your thought on this one?
I'm fine with it.
Yep,
Yeah.
Okay with me.
looks fine to me, Mayor.
Would you scroll it down, CAO?
To the,
Do you want me to go all the way to the
Okay.
schedule?
to Schedule A, if we could.
There we go, down to Schedule A. Thank you. Notice that the prices quoted include taxes and tipping. Typical tipping is 15% of the cost of the meal. And then the taxes are 15%. So the $35 or the $30 or the money you get for the meal is reduced by almost 30% if it includes taxes and tips.
Mhm.
I don't think that was the case before, was it?
It just wasn't specified before, but it was, that
Okay.
was our understanding, was that it would
Okay.
be the total.
You know, the $20 breakfast becomes an $11 breakfast because of taxes and tips. And the same with lunch. I think if you're in a city, not if you're in Mahone Bay or if you're going to go to McDonald's for breakfast, but if you're in Halifax, it's almost impossible to eat for that amount of money.
Mayor, just to clarify, so the theme here around the per diems is to avoid receipted receipts, or will receipts still be used and processed?
You
The
would use the
receipts,
receipt to
as I
exceed-
understand it, would only be used in a situation where the cost of your meal unavoidably exceeded the rate that's provided.
Yes, and that's correct, and that's under G here.
Pardon me,
Yes.
G.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so-
Receipts will still be the expected norm.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. I think what we would be intending is that if you're claiming for a meal and you're within these limits, you would just simply indicate that you were claiming in your month for a breakfast, a lunch, a dinner, and cite the days in which you were doing it, unless you wish to exceed these claim limits. And as the mayor said, if we feel these claim limits are insufficient, we could look at something higher. This is an increase from $11 to $20 for breakfast. So going higher than that, I don't think that we felt that was necessary at this time, but this would be the time to suggest it.
Councillor Now?
Yeah, so these amounts here are just basically if you don't want to provide a receipt. If you provide a receipt, you can go above those limits. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, although it would be at, my approval, so I would look at the receipt and, if, as the mayor says, you're in a place where it's just a typical breakfast and it costs $50, let's say you're in a calorie-ton business and you're gonna spend $60 for a regular plate, then that's totally reasonable. Whereas if you got a 5-course breakfast, I suppose I'd have to talk to you about doing that every time.
Yeah, well, that's normal, but I'm just saying to the mayor's comments there that if you were in Halifax and you ended up paying $18 for breakfast plus gratuities plus taxes, you can still get reimbursed for it.
I
Right?
would suggest, Councillor Now, that would be the case, but you would be justifying to the CAO
Yes.
why your breakfast, why you did, like if you go to the Westin on the
Mhm.
NSFM conference, buffet breakfast is $23, right? So if you're gonna, the whole point of staying at the Westin where the conference is being held is there's a certain amount of convenience factor there. So you go downstairs for breakfast and you're paying $23.
Yeah. So as long as you can justify it though, then you can still get your reimbursement, right?
Justify it to the CAO though.
Yeah, yeah.
Via receipt.
With a receipt, I mean,
That's the best thing. Always, if you're over the 20 or you're over the 35, get a receipt.
exactly.
I have one question here about incidental expenses, $10.
Yeah.
Do you just automatically put that in, or do you have to have it receivable or justifiable?
So you would normally, I'm just looking to see what it's got here in the, you would normally be able to put in for it without any receipts if you're traveling for the entirety of the day. And I'm just looking to see if there's a requirement there. I
What's
thought he
that
had
under
something.
general?
Yes, yeah. Oh, well, no,
No,
doesn't have
nothing
it.
there.
No, so
Councillor Lee?
that's a very good suggestion though, John. The intention certainly would be to clarify here, and maybe we can add a clarification here that the incidental expenses was only meant to be claimed when you're traveling for a trip exceeding a day.
Yeah. I think Treasury Board defines it as if you're overnight.
Yeah.
If you're away from home overnight, then the incidentals kick in.
So we could add that to general. I know when I talked to Luke that my understanding was that was here, so I'm not sure it's not, obviously.
So if you went to a 4-day conference, then legitimately you could put in $40 whether you spend it or not.
Yes,
I have
that's
trouble with
that's
that.
the thought.
Day 1, day 2, and day 3, but not day 4 because you would be coming home the evening of the 4th day. You're not going to be away overnight.
Okay, I'll say 5 days and claim $40 then.
Then you get $40.
So you make my point, but
Yeah.
yeah, I put it in even whether I spend it or not. Something wrong with that.
Well,
I mean, that's at your discretion when you're doing the claim, John, but if you had incidentals, like I just traveled to a conference in Ontario anytime you're flying through an airport, you're likely to grab a bottle of water, that kind of thing. If you feel that you had incidental costs that were incurred as a result of that trip, then you can claim for incidentals without a receipt. It doesn't mean you're obligated to do so. And I think that's an important guideline for anyone, is that you're only claiming things that you actually spend, whether you're submitting a receipt or not, is you're still only submitting a claim for expenses you incurred.
Well, as long as that's reflected, then I'll support it.
Okay.
If it's not reflected, I won't support it.
Councillor Feeney?
Can you
You're
see
looking
me?
quizzical up there, Joseph.
No, I'm fine. I'm
Councillor
fine, Mayor. I'm fine, Mayor, with these changes.
Thank you.
I have a
Mr.
comment.
Carver?
May I speak?
Yep.
Yes, so I'm curious why breakfast and lunch are both $20. Usually lunch is more expensive than breakfast, I thought. So why are they?
The federal rates are provided there on the page. So I think Luke was essentially just rounding because they're so close. The way that the federal rates are, they were very close.
But then he treated the dinner differently. He rounded it way down from.
Yeah, well, I'm not suggesting that it's all rounding. I'm just suggesting the reason that breakfast and lunch are so close, it was rounding. But, this would be the moment if you think $25 is more
I'd
appropriate
suggest,
lunch.
yeah, I'd suggest 25. And then that sort of, alleviates the receipt issue.
25 for lunch?
So following the procedure that you guys have been doing, since these are two changes, the change to 25 for lunch and the inclusion of a sentence specifying the requirement for overnight travel to claim incidentals, you could do a motion to make those two changes to the draft so that way we have everything in the draft that you want to consider.
Somebody want to make that motion?
I will.
Who will?
Carver.
Councillor Carver?
Carver, yeah.
Are you seconding?
I thought I was making the motion, but whichever needs needed.
Again, I've only got 4 faces on the screen. That's my.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Now.
Okay, Councillor Now will second. All in favor?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Yes.
Okay, let me.
And that's the end of that document. So I can give you the screen back and you can see everyone again, Mr. Mayor, if you'd like.
Good. Oh, there we go.
We are.
There we go. Okay. All right.
So we'll make those changes. We'll put that on your next agenda.
Yes, please. Let's go to that's it. Mileage rate. Oh, mileage rate. We did that. We did the mails. Okay. So you're going to make those changes, bring it back the next meeting. So let's go to the proposed new private road name. This is a hangover from a couple meetings ago. CAO, you want to?
Well, I was asked a question and we deferred it so I could respond. So I've done my best to respond to that here. So if there's any further questions, I can take them, but my recommendation is that we approve the request as we'd originally received it.
Okay. Somebody want to move that motion? I think it was Christine's place, wasn't it? Yeah. Deputy Mayor makes the motion. Councillor Now seconds it. All in
Mayor,
favor?
Mayor, just before we vote, I would say though, that when I drive by that road, it looks to me a lot like a large driveway. I know maybe it'll evolve over time. There'll be more buildings that will be on that road and it'll take more of the traditional view of what a road would be. But when I look at that road, I compare that, I could see a bunch of roads showing up for council to ratify. Like, for example, like my next door neighbor, 2 doors down, there's 3 houses on one large driveway, very, very similar to that scenario. So I do think that, hey, certainly not a hill to die on. It's not, we'll move on. It's a nice name, but I do think that there are lots of other examples of extended driveways that will now be potentially called roads.
Councillor Bain? You're on mute, John.
Okay, now the implications of that being a road, that means it can be serviced with the garbage truck can go in between the two buildings once that extra building is built. Is that correct? As opposed to a driveway where,
So my understanding of the definition of it as a private road is for civic addressing purposes.
okay,
It certainly wouldn't, we wouldn't own the road. It wouldn't be a right of way or anything like that.
No, no plowing, nothing like that.
yeah, okay then. That's just for clarification.
Okay?
And just to Councillor Feeney's point, because I think it's a valid one, is that, it's not on this request is conforming to the new bylaw that we have, but when it comes to the civic addressing bylaw that we put in, we have 3 addresses on the street as the minimum number, and this is 2 duplexes, which qualifies. So you've got a street that is essentially 2 buildings, and that is enough to warrant a private street name. So council may in the future want to consider whether you should have a higher maximum than 3. But at the end of the day, all that it leads to is civic numbering where you would have A, B, C, and D on the same civic on Main Street versus 4 numbers associated with this new street. So it's just a question of what does it really mean to have a proliferation of private roads. But it is something council want to consider because this came directly pursuant to the new bylaw that we put in about a month ago.
Okay. I see on my watch it's 8:30. And at 8:30 we were going to take a pause. And I was going to ask council whether you wish to continue.
I think we're in discussion on the motion. Should we do that first?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, you're right. All in favor? Motion's carried. 8:30. What does council wish to do? Another 30 minutes, I would hope we could get through, the budget meeting schedule, but I'd love to get through the town logo piece. I think we owe it to the people that made the presentation, if nothing else, to try and get that done before we go home tonight. What would you like?
May I speak?
Yes, you may.
If we don't do the full agenda tonight, where is it going to go?
Councillor O'Neill suggested that when we meet around the budget stuff, we try and fit the pieces in then, or we could defer it to the next council meeting.
Do we have a
Sorry?
Do we have a sense of what our agenda is going to look like on the next meeting, which is the 30th?
Clerk?
So the 30th is looking pretty light right now. Maureen, are there any delegations registered?
Yes. Normally I have to follow up again with the COVID thing, but normally we would receive a presentation from the fire department on that evening. And just depending on scheduling, that may be when we end up doing our public hearing for the draft outdoor burning bylaw.
May I suggest?
Councillor O'Neill?
So my proposal would be that, we do continue for an additional 30 minutes during this session. And then anything that is not addressed in the current agenda would be moved as a continuation of this meeting to 6 p.m. In advance of the budget discussion, with an expectation that we should be able to clear the rest of the agenda within the hour between 6 and 7 p.m.
And that's on the 21st, Colleen?
That's correct.
I had made a suggestion regarding the budget discussion,
Go ahead.
and that was possibly we could start that at 1 o'clock and do what we can do. And if there's time left over, we can then come back to the council or vice versa. But as opposed to starting either at 6 or 7 at night and then going into the evening, which seems to be what maybe prompted the 90 minutes. Now, Councillor O'Neill can comment on that and then taking the extra 30 minutes.
I would like to comment
Just
on
wait
that.
1 second. John, which day did you want to start?
Well, that was on April the 21st.
21st.
And my rationale is everybody's working at home anyway. So to move it to 1 o'clock, I don't see what the problem would
problem
be
would
there.
be?
Maybe there are some problems, I don't know.
Councillor O'Neill.
So households all being quite different, I can share with you that there's at least one counselor who is working from home, has a child who she's homeschooling, and is also trying to participate fully in the budget discussions. And I would be very grateful to have all of the budget meetings and any other council business happen after the dinner hour when I actually can attend to them. I'm not able to attend during the day. It's actually busier now than it was prior to
We
the
can't treat the
COVID.
budget discussion as a math lesson or something, or?
Oh, that's not a bad idea.
Here we go. We've got it covered. Okay. Anyone else? Councillor Carver.
Yes, I'm concerned about the idea of moving agenda items from tonight to piggyback onto a budget meeting, because a budget meeting is usually pretty taxing in itself. We have the fire station discussion coming up after the 21st. So if we're adding an hour to a budget discussion meeting, we're going to be going well over 90 minutes for that meeting. So I'm just not sure how the arithmetic works.
Okay. Councillor Bain.
We're gonna burn our 30 minutes up. Let's make a call. We're gonna do this or defer it. Come on. This is why we're so long doing meetings.
So are you suggesting a motion that we either go for 30 more minutes and defer, or we keep going till we're done?
I will agree to go for the extra 30 minutes and recommend that the following council meeting, whatever date that is we try and have a reduced agenda already in anticipation of having to complete this agenda.
Okay.
And that'd be the 30th.
That's correct.
So we're gonna keep going for 30 minutes. We chewed up 10 doing this. We're gonna keep going for 30 minutes. And then we will defer the unfinished items to the 30th, the night of our next council meeting. And there'll be a sincere effort on the part of the clerk, looking so angelic over there in the corner, to cut the agenda down as much as possible.
We just won't give you as many staff reports next time.
There you go.
Good.
That
Let's continue.
is the motion.
Fair enough.
Who wants to be the mover?
I'll move it.
Deputy Mayor, okay. Councillor Bain seconds. 30 minutes, all in favor? Good, okay, let's keep going. Next item is, we did the private road name. The budget meeting schedule. Dylan, do you want to run through that very quickly?
Sure, we already started the conversation about it with that discussion about the 21st. Essentially, because of the feedback with regards to daytime meetings, I was proposing that 4 budget meetings take place in the evening. I do think that we will be able to keep them to a 90-minute or just a little bit there above. That's why they're broken down that way. So my suggested schedule there, if you're good with it, somebody could move that those meetings be scheduled or suggest any changes. And I can put it on the screen if you don't have it in front of you.
Can we get a mover on that?
I move that.
Moved, do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Carver. All in favor? Good, I'll mark your calendars, people. We're in on that one. Supportive workplace policy. Oh, Councillor Carver. You're on mute. You're on mute.
I'd like to move that we defer this topic to April 30th.
Okay. Councillor Carver has suggested we defer this to the next meeting.
Second.
Seconded, all in favor? Motion's carried. Okay. Now, somewhere here.
And the Eller's House
Where
report is
is
just
it?
for
Okay,
information.
Eller's House Wind Farm, board report. CAO, is that something we have to do tonight?
It's just for information. So if there's no questions, that's all you need.
Okay.
It's a good story.
COVID-19, I
Mayor?
asked that, what?
Mayor, sorry, just on the Eller House report, is that can be issued to the public, can't it? There's no
And
reason
now-
why.
Yeah,
can
I mean, it's a public
Okay.
document now, but we could also prepare it, as some type of a public document, because for a lot of people, it's not.
It's a good story anyway. That
Yeah. No,
It
and
is.
we've been releasing information about the electrical utility lately. So maybe we can put something together like that for one of the upcoming releases.
I'm still amazed by the number of people I meet that are surprised to learn that we've got a wind farm.
was an interesting report.
You know, it just, we need every piece of that we can get.
And
Okay.
It's a good
Let's
report to,
go. Mhm.
it's a good report to give the public, to make public, because it's easily read, it's easily
Yeah.
digestible.
Let's go to item 7.1, town logo, Councillor Carver. No, 7.2, skip the COVID-19. I've got nothing to give you other than what you all know anyway from reading the paper and watching the news and looking at my Facebook page. It's all there, everything you need to know. Although I did just see while we're here that Mr. Trump has ordered the finance director to stop monies going to the World Health Organization because of the way they handled the COVID problem. Anyway.
Well, on that gloomy note, I will launch into the motion that I'm bringing to council tonight. And I'm bringing this motion because I believe that we as a council have a duty to our constituents, to our community, to show that we are not deaf to their concerns, to show them that we've heard them and that we have listened, not to capitulate and not to cast aside a decision that was made in good faith, but to suggest a way forward. The motion does not propose a specific outcome. It proposes a process that would generate its own outcome, a process that reflects principles of public engagement and principles of municipal branding. It proposes a process that would include various stakeholders who care and who are affected by how the town represents itself. The motion proposes a way to honor the concerns of citizens, to honor the town's need to update the way it portrays itself symbolically, and to honor the town's stated core values. I won't take the time to read all the whereases. I expect that you have read them. Would like to read the last whereas. The town of Mahone Bay's core values require us to be honest, accountable, fair, transparent, and responsive. Therefore, be it resolved that following the community branding public engagement component of the wayfinding project and the community vision public engagement component of the municipal plan review, Council will formally revisit its commitment to the use of the current Three Diamonds design as its corporate logo, with the understanding that the current Three Diamonds logo will continue to be used for corporate purposes in the meantime, while community signage will continue to feature the three churches.
Okay, you've heard the motion. Do we have a seconder? Councillor O'Neill. On the question.
I'd like to just say something first, if I may, Mayor.
Sure.
What I appreciated about Councillor Carver's very thoughtful motion is that this is actually an approach, to my reading, it's an approach that acknowledges a process gap that I've been a bit uncomfortable with since the topic of the logos first arrived on council's agenda. And I think that what's spelled out here provides a really logical pathway forward that involves a wider range of stakeholders than was perhaps involved in the original process. And in particular, it acknowledges that residents do consider themselves to be stakeholders in this topic. And it's fair to say that the original process didn't involve them as stakeholders, and there were reasons for that. But this provides a pathway that they would be considered as stakeholders, and they certainly do consider themselves stakeholders, and that's why I will support this motion, because I would like to bring them into this conversation.
Okay. Anyone else?
Mayor, I think the delegation today just kind of reemphasized what we all know, and that, there was a strong community reaction to the logo change. I really haven't seen anything quite like it, to be fair. So I do think the council did take quite a bit of consideration into account when it made the original decision. But I think, reasonable people can acknowledge that there was a process gap. And maybe this is a way forward to kind of bringing the community back together. So I'll be supporting this motion. And I do think that I do really think that this council is owed a detailed report from SkySail outlining their reaction to the community's reaction and offering the council any advice that they may have as our provider of communication services, exactly what their recommendation is regarding the negative feedback on the chosen logo number A. So we can deal with that maybe in another motion, but I would like to see SkySail invited back to council and with a direction to provide council with their expertise on where they think we should go forward to dovetail with Councillor Carver's recommended path.
I would appreciate it, Councillor Feeney, if that was a motion when we're finished with this issue. I think there's a lot of value in having that discussion with the SkySail people. I mean, if you think about it, this is someone we contracted to do a communications work for us. And as Councillor Carver and Councillor O'Neill pointed out again, and rightly so, the one thing we didn't do was communicate with our citizens when we did it. Anyway, Councillor Now, do you have a comment?
I just want to say I didn't like the logo from the start, but that's neither here nor there. It didn't quite look right to me, and hearing them tonight sort of explained why, because I am one of those ones that are in the color blindness part of this. So I was wondering, that's why it didn't really look quite right to me. So I didn't know that until she mentioned that tonight. Pardon me?
Please tell me you don't see green fire trucks.
No, I don't. But if it's red, green close together, I cannot distinguish
Really?
that type of thing.
Thank you
So
for
that
that.
explains why I, didn't see it quite the way it should have been, I guess.
Councillor Bain?
No, I don't have any comment other than what we've already heard in the motion.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
I guess I can support it. Say we didn't contact the citizens. We sort of did. It was held at a public meeting.
Yeah.
The agendas are posted. They didn't read it, but I could support Councillor Carver's motion, and
Okay.
but I think just to put all the blame on we didn't call them up. Our meetings are always public. The decision was made at a public meeting. If we're going to do this, we're going to have a lot of outside meetings to make sure the town is involved. Another thing I'd like to say, I don't have Facebook. I would like to see a copy of this petition. Because 1 minute the lady was talking about 29 Mahone Bay people signed it. And then she makes a comment that there was over 200 and some Mahone Bay citizens.
Yeah.
So I would like to see that copy. I'm one that does not really believe in petitions. I find sometimes somebody comes with a petition and people will sign it or say they'll sign it just to get rid of you. They're not really involved in the issue. They just want to say, okay, I'll sign it, and away they go. So that's my own personal, as far as I know, my lifetime, 65 years, I have never signed a petition, and that's the reason why. So anyways, that's my opinion, but I will support Councilor.
Okay. It's interesting that there were 700 signatures.
Yeah.
29 of the most recent batch were confirmed as being citizens of the town. And we had 38 from all the rest. So 67 petition signees out of 700 could be confirmed as being residents of the town. I saw some of the petitions. There was one person from Russia that signed it in Cyrillic language online, and the ones that come online are not deemed to be valid. The ones that don't have a name and address are not deemed to be valid. But notwithstanding the fact that the 700 whittles down very quickly to 39, the real factor for me is that we did not, Councillor Carver, a lot of other people around this table have been on training for engagement processes and the AP2 concepts around engaging people, and we didn't engage people when we sent this out. So I will have to support the motion as well. The other motions we had on this were all recorded votes. Would somebody like to ask for a recorded vote this time?
I will.
Councillor now? Okay, let's go with Mr. Bain. Are you a yay or a nay?
I'll support the motion.
He votes for it,
Yes.
okay. Councillor Carver?
Yes,
Yes. Councillor Feeney?
Yay.
Yay. Councillor O'Neill?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes,
Thank you, sir. And Richard, now,
Vote in favor of the motion, Your Worship.
okay. Oh, I like your honor, that's good. And I will vote yes again. So we are unanimous in our,
Eric?
are we not? Who did I miss?
Yeah.
Where?
No, we got everybody. Okay,
Mayor, I'd like to make another motion under new business.
okay. Let me check my list here. Okay. Councillor O'Neill, you had federal and provincial funding for COVID-19. Do you want to talk to that or let it go till the next one, or?
I think this will be fairly straightforward. This arose from a conversation that we had at the last meeting, and I'm just going to pull it up here. And the motion is that council directs staff to write a letter to federal and provincial representatives urging infrastructure funding to municipalities as an effective form of economic stimulus in response to the economic impacts of COVID-19.
Is that your motion?
Yes.
Councillor Carver seconds it. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Let's go to committee reports. I think the Economic Development Committee has got a couple of
Mayor?
actions in it, does it not?
Mayor, under new business, I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to invite SkySail to a further a future council meeting to provide any feedback they have on the local issue and provide any advice that they may have.
Okay,
So
we have a
Joe,
seconder?
that's just it's under new business, so that's just a notice of motion to the 30th.
No, fair enough.
Okay.
And
But
Mr.
you might
Mayor,
want to
you were right.
give SkySail a heads up that it's coming.
Yes, I will do that. And you were
Okay.
right that there was some recommendation in the Economic Development Committee.
Yeah. I was proposing that we take the committee reports as provided unless somebody has a question. But I know there's a couple of motions in the Economic Development Committee.
I think we've got motions in the Heritage as well. So maybe,
Oh, that
Joe,
was
do
the one
you
about
want to
the
start with the
house for
Heritage?
Yeah. And plaquing the rectory as well, I think is in there.
Joe, do you want to make those motions from Heritage?
I do. I just, I'm having a hard time bringing them up in front of us.
I can share the screen if you want.
Please, or just to, you can scroll right to the recommendation or the recommended motion, Dylan, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, I'll do that. One second
On.
here.
And he's got a black cat.
Okay, should.
We got to get everybody 2 screens, Dylan.
Yeah, I'm not, one sec. There we go. Was stuck on the Economic Development Committee. So here we go. These are the motions that I think you're looking for, Joe.
Great. I'd move that where are we here?
Just start from that.
I'd move that council approve a plaquing ceremony event for the property at 53 Edgewater Street to be held on May 13th, 2020, with the mayor officiating, wearing a mask probably that time, but
I think it'll be more of a photo opportunity.
I'll get my Mickey Mouse mask. That's
May
okay.
13th.
I'll
Okay,
second that.
That's the
Worship.
motion.
I'll second it.
Councilor Carver seconds it. All in favor?
Wait. Do we have to put in something about conditions permitting? Rather than the specific date?
Well, we'll play that by ear.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess you're right. If at this point the ceremony is just a photo op and the weather's not good, we can pick another date.
We'll get our sou'wester on. Okay, all in favor? That
Aye.
motion's carried.
The second item is the first time we introduced a new program last year under the HAC to put a small appropriation in place to assist any of the designated municipally designated heritage properties to give them eligibility for a heritage grant. And I believe our appropriation was about $1,000 a year. So we've had our first applicant come forward this year into the program. I think we're incenting the right behavior, which is the ongoing upkeep and preservation of these historically significant dwellings. Again, without getting into the specifics, we did review the bylaw at length, and there's criteria that would provide good safeguards for the town and the taxpayers in this space, but I think it is an incentive program. And I'd move that council approve the heritage grant application from the owners of 17 Aberdeen Lane for their beautification project.
I'll second it again.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried. Thank you. Let's go down to the Economic Development Committee.
And just let me know, I don't know, John, if you're doing these, if you want me to share them as well.
Okay, Dylan?
Yep.
So it's just this one recommendation. And I do have the report handy, so if you want to make this motion, and then I can bring the report up on the screen so the council can see what those recommendations were, I can do that as well.
Yeah, okay, and I'll make that that motion. Yeah, actually, it was Mr. Frampton that brought it forward at the committee meeting. and Councillor O'Neill, that the committee recommends that the town council direct staff to undertake all recommendations in the report.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
I'll second it if nobody else does.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Carver?
I can't see anybody else. But
Well, I appreciate that because all it's going to do is get it up so we can
yeah,
look at the meat of it.
So
I
I'll do
just wanted
that
to say,
now.
I also was trying to
Yeah,
second it.
Good to see you on the screen.
it's hard when we're all
Yes.
on split like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's only when I take over the screen. So now that we've got that up here, these are the recommendations. So this is a single motion for all of these recommendations. If everybody's comfortable with them, I'll go through here and then you can discuss. So essentially what's on the floor is to direct staff to investigate the potential to provide strategically placed service dog waste disposal stations in several locations throughout the town. I will say we have a report coming next week as part of the budget process on that already.
Okay.
The next one is investigating the potential to provide strategically placed and service additional bins on Main Street shopping areas. That's also something that we were planning to report on as part of the budget process. And similarly, investigating the cost of winterizing and the operating the comfort stations on a year-round basis is something that, because it was already requested of the chamber, council referred it to budget. We already do have a report on that basis that will be coming out to you guys as part of the budget process. The Wi-Fi investigation of the cost, that is something that we would not have time to undertake for the 2021 budget. However, if council passes the motion as is, we'll assume that we'll be undertaking investigation of this with a report that would give you what you'd need to include it in the 2021-22 budget at that time. So that's the one item so far in here that if it does go ahead as planned, staff wouldn't be in a position to come back with estimates in time for the 2021 budget. However, I don't know that that's necessarily an issue. The committee wasn't necessarily saying it had to happen immediately. The next one is with the website, and it suggests that we look at a business registry. We have been investigating that, and we will have a report with that as one of the items with regards to the new website. At the current time, the thought is that we're better off providing a link to the chamber. They're working on their registry. However, the limitation is that it will, of course, be chamber members. So that's something we can talk about later, but the direction to investigate staff would at this time already be something we're investigating. And similarly, the next one concerns the website and volunteer management, especially for events. And we are, as already directed by staff, working on events with a section on the website planned. And the last one is with regards to bylaws, and this would be a change. So essentially, staff would be requested to come back with a draft policy that would essentially require us to always come to go to a public information meeting for every bylaw that is coming up for review. And I will say that there are times when that might be a cumbersome process. But what we'd be doing here is bringing a staff report where we could then have that specific conversation with council. So this does not amend the bylaw, the policy. It just directs staff to come back with a recommendation on that basis. So that's what I see here. But if there's any questions, this is a large motion with all 7 of these.
One of the things, can you hear me now?
Yep, can hear you, John.
Yeah, okay. One of the things I would stress, a lot of it in the earlier part of this, which our CAO presented, was investigate, and I'll just emphasize that it is investigate.
Thank you.
That's, don't read too much into it, other than it's investigate by staff. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Joseph, you look like you're winding up to something.
No, I'm good. I
Okay.
think John just settled the issue.
All right, all in favor? Motion's carried. Bibbing,
And
you're done.
Maureen reminded me that there is a second motion in the report from the committee, so I'm going back to it. John, sorry to put you back
Oh,
on the
yes,
hook
that's
for
right,
this, but
there is.
this was the second motion there, John, from the committee concerning the now Lunenburg County grant.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Oh,
Is that something that would be referred to the grant process of the budget?
I would suggest doing that. The last budget meeting will be the one where we're actually doing the allocation. So by that point, you'll have received the package of applicants, including this application.
Yeah.
And the importance here is to note, if you refer this to budget, what you're doing is you're essentially making it known to the council members that the Economic Development Committee recommends this. At the end of the day, council will still do the allocation in budget, but with the knowledge that the committee wanted to recommend this application, which my understanding is why they did this motion.
And do you know offhand, CAO, has now Lunenburg County, at one point they were going to submit their own application directly. Has that been done, or are they relying on the Economic Development Committee application?
No, this is referring to an application that was submitted by the Lunenburg County that you'll get in your package. But because we extended the grants deadline, we're not sending that package around till we close the application window this week.
Okay,
So you can just refer this to budget, John, if you want to make a motion.
Yeah. Okay,
Council
that's,
refer that recommendation to budget.
yeah. Okay, I'll make that motion that it's referred to budget.
okay.
Seconded.
We have a seconder, Colleen?
Yeah.
All right, moved and seconded to refer the grant request from now Lunenburg County, supported by the Economic Development Committee, to the budget process. All in favor? Motion's carried. Is that it? I think that's it.
Not bad.
Yeah, not bad.
You're on mute.
We only ended up deferring the supportive workplace committees, so we'll put that on the 30th.
Good. That's good. Good idea, Colleen. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
I
It's
have a
been
comment,
slice.
Mayor. Just
Pardon
very-
me?
I have a comment, very
Okay,
briefly. We're inviting Sky Sail to come to the next meeting.
yes.
Okay,
It'll be the meeting after next. just
or the
for-
meeting
Yeah,
after next, but anyway, whatever one they're gonna come to. I hope that's gonna be a freebie.
Ever the spendthrift, Mr. Bain. Okay, all right. Anything else?
On.
Stay the blazes home, people. It's getting harder every day with the sun being out, but
Move to adjourn.
motion to
Seconded.
adjourn, seconded. See you later.
Right, all.
Yeah.
All right,
Good night,
good
folks.
night.